friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. We are making the second part of our dinner for tonight, and the first part was our pumpkin soup. So that's done. We're going to make the second part, which is actually the entree. So these are called sweet potato biscuits, and we're going to serve these with some uncured ham. That's going to go with our sweet potato soup. It's just the pumpkin soup. I've already started messing up. Okay, bear with me. It's the end of the day. I'm trying to get this done. It's almost time for dinner. So I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees. And now we'll start putting things together. I have cooked my sweet potatoes. I drained them and they're starting to cool off, and I don't want them to cool off all the way. So let's get this mixed up. So to 3 cups of plain flour, I'm going to add 2 heaping tablespoons of baking powder. That's a heaping. And that's a heaping. And 1 teaspoon of salt. This is just pink Himalayan salt. I have my 2 sticks of butter in the freezer along with my metal cheese grater, which we're going to grate the butter into the flour with. Okay, let's get this all mixed up. I'm using my dry fork because I'm fixing to mash the sweet potatoes with the fork, and I didn't want to get it wet before I did this because I don't want it sticking to it. Okay, let's mash these up real quick and set those aside. Sweet potatoes cook pretty quick. Seems like they cook a lot faster than a regular potato, so it doesn't take much time to get those softened up. These biscuits are kind of a sweet biscuit, but the sweet potatoes just enhance the flavor of it, but it really doesn't taste a whole lot like a sweet potato, if you're concerned about that. But they do have a pretty orange color to them. Okay, I'll put the lid back on it and keep those warm. Now we'll get our butter out of the freezer. Try not to touch the grater any more than I have to because the warmth from your hands just heats it up that much more. So if you have a better way of incorporating your butter into your flour, then go right ahead and use that technique. But this by far is my favorite, and I've been doing this for a long time. And when I say a long time, I just happened, and I say this, it was a sheer accident. When I was in home ec, when I was in probably junior high, I guess, it was the week to make pie crust, and for some reason mine just turned out so good. I don't know how, because that wasn't something I'd ever done before, but I knew the instructions and I followed them, and it turned out great, and from then on, I've never had a problem with it. So I guess it just goes to show, if you have a success at one thing, in your mind, you're convinced you're a success. If you have a failure at one thing, unfortunately, you're convinced you're a failure from then on. So that worked to my advantage when it came to making pies and pie crust in particular. But this technique was something I just stumbled up on just in the last few years, and it works really, really well. Because what you want are little blobs of butter inside all that powdery flour, and that's what makes a really fluffy biscuit in this case, but it also makes a really nice pie crust. But if you have a better way of cutting your fat into the flour, then go right ahead and use that technique, but this is my favorite. So we're going to kind of toss the butter in the flour just to coat it, and then we have another stick of butter to go. And I use unsalted butter, always. I know some people say, oh, I like the saltiness of it. Then add some salt to it. But my reason for using unsalted, and you can buy salted if you want to, but my reason for buying unsalted is because, from what I understand, and it could be totally erroneous information, but I understand that sometimes they'll add salt to an inferior product to just make it seem like it's better. I don't want an inferior product. I don't want anything covering it up. So I want to know how much salt is added to mine. I'd rather add salt to the full product and know how much is in there rather than assume that it's going to be salty enough or not salty enough and then add more to it and then wind up with too much. So 2 sticks of butter in total is what we're adding to this. If I put flour on it, sometimes it comes off a little bit better than if I just try to rake it off with my hands. It just smears it. All right, just going to toss that around. I also want to add some sugar, but I'm not adding white sugar to it. You can if you want, but I'm going to use coconut sugar. Glycemic index is a little bit lower on coconut sugar. Not that we have blood sugar issues, but I like the taste of coconut sugar too. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup of sugar. I'm going to put a little bit less than that in there. And I need to clean that lid off. I don't like flour stuck to lids or anything, because if somebody comes over and has a gluten issue, I don't want it transferred into their food. So I'll clean that off before I put it back in the pantry. All right, there is our sugar in there, and we're going to add our mashed up sweet potatoes. And these are still just a tiny bit warm. The recipe calls for 2 cups of mashed sweet potatoes. So somewhere close to that. I just grabbed 2 medium-sized sweet potatoes that I had. To this, we're also going to add 1/4 cup of milk. I'm just going to pour it right in there on top of that. Now we'll stir up our biscuit dough. Now remember, biscuit dough is not to be kneaded. You just want to stir it until everything clings together, or you can press it together with your hands. So more than anything, I'm just running my fork through the liquid part of it to try to get the dry part to stick to it. Normal recipes for biscuits are generally 2 cups of flour. So this is about 50% more, 50% larger batch than what you would normally have in just an average recipe for biscuits. All right, we're going to start pressing it together with our hands. I'm taking the dry and kind of pressing it into the wet part. If you have an event coming up and there's a fall theme to it or an autumn theme, this is what you want to make. This and the soup. It's perfect together. Okay, pick up any scraggly edges along the side of the bowl. And you can see it's starting to come together in a ball. Okay, it all came together in a ball like that. And I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my countertop so it doesn't stick. And I got just about all the flour out of my clear container, my clear flour jar over there to make the biscuits with, so I'll be scraping the bottom of the bucket to get some for the countertop. Okay. You want to put just enough of a layer on there to where it keeps it from touching the countertop, the wet dough from touching the countertop, because it will stick. Now, how do you get your sleeves up when you got dough on both hands? I'm just going to press this out, but you can use a rolling pin to roll it out for an even thickness if you want. Those specks in there look like dirt, and they also look like black pepper. So when I was mixing it up just a minute ago, I kind of caught myself off guard and thought, what did I put in this? But it's the coconut sugar. All right. We have our pan with, yes, our recycled piece of parchment there. And this is an, I believe it's an old evaporated milk can that my grandmother placed it on the flame of a gas stove and melted the soldering, because this is what they used to, this is how they used to make the cans. They would solder the bottom and top lid on. Instead of having that crimped edge on it, they would solder it. So she put this on a flame on the gas stove years and years ago, probably when I first got married, 40 years ago. And just took tongs and took that top off, and that's my biscuit cutter. I've had this for a long time. Now my biscuits aren't going to be perfectly round because I don't like wasting the dough. So what I'm going to do is just cut them out in circles. I'm going to turn this camera around so you can see them going on the pan. And you can see what I'm doing here. If it's got a little edge like that, I'll take and kind of fold that edge in, put any little wandering away pieces on there. Otherwise, you get all these little tiny pieces in the end, and you just have to push them back together, and then you've incorporated a lot more flour in it than what you need. I like to kind of fit them together like a puzzle where the sides touch, because that part of the biscuit's really soft. I like that. And then you have one little piece left over like this, and we'll just stick this in the middle. This will be our trial biscuit that we can test to make sure the rest of them taste okay. I'm going to put it somewhere in the center. Okay, I think I just heard our buzzer go off on our oven, so that means our oven is preheated. We're going to pop these in there, and these are going to bake for 10 to 12 minutes. I'll set it for 10, and I can always add a couple more. Okay, we'll be right back, and I'll show you what the final product looks like. Okay, our timer just went off on our stove, our oven. And I actually had to leave these in there for 15 minutes. I think because mine were just a little bit thicker than what most people would roll theirs out. So I gave it 15 minutes. And they look perfect. Now, if you're not using coconut sugar, yours will not have freckles like mine. But mine have freckles, and that's from the coconut sugar. Okay, we're going to prep these now. We have our pumpkin soup, we have our sweet potato biscuits, and we have our ham ready to go on it. I wanted to show you the package to this so you'll see what I'm talking about. It says uncured maple wood smoked ham. And this is pre-sliced. This ham is fabulous. So we're going to put this cold ham on the hot biscuits, serve it with the hot soup with nutmeg on top. And I'll show you that plate once we get it all plated up. So we'll see you in a bit. Hey, thanks for joining us. We hope you give this recipe a try. Recipe is in the description as always, and 2 different recipe items, 2 different videos, but together they are just a fabulous, fabulous meal for cooler weather coming in. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. I'm going to get busy on this biscuit with ham and some soup. So see ya. Bye.